not see me yet. What's up? You can't see me. You can't see me. Like the skin surface of it's orange, and when you sand it, it actually starts to disappear, but when you dry it again, you'll see the orange. Now, as you can tell here, I've been sanding this. Side, you will be able to notice there's very little orange peel as opposed to this area. This area clearly has more orange peel, and this has a little bit less. There's a little bit less, a little bit more, and the least. There's barely any spots. Most, lesser, least. I clearly went over this the most with 2000. I barely touched this spot with any 2000, and then this spot I just kind of got finished getting some. Alright guys, if you can see, there's a few little particles in my stuff. My paint that I really want to take out, like this one right here. What you gotta do is gonna come in with a razor blade. And with the razor blade, and just cut it off. So there's nothing there. I know it sounds dangerous, and it is kind of dangerous, but just keep it like around a 45-degree angle. You just want to. Razor blade sucks. This razor blade is not sharp. Anyway, that's it. Just get the nib out like that. There's another one. It's good to go. I'm just gonna go doing this around the whole entire thing, because if you don't do this, you buff it. You cut. It will leave a random spot. I'll show you what it's gonna look like. Fish eye or something like that. So you want to get those out so that when you're sanding, it doesn't look like that. I got a few of them everywhere. I'm painting outside, so. Trying to clean out this edge. Obviously, as you can see, that's what it was looking like over there, but it's more smooth now. I'm basically going to do this along this whole entire body line, and I just covered up these so that I can get close to this edge as close as possible. So that's good. Pretty happy with that. Here's it's hardening up. Right. Whole car is kind of the same. I'm basically going to use 1,000 grit on a sander, DA sander, and yeah, we're gonna get to town pretty soon. Next thing you want to do is get a piece of tape and rub it on your clothes. You know, like kind of string it back and forth. Take off the sticky tackiness. Because if you don't do that, and when you come to take off your tape again, it could lift up some of the paint, depending on what kind of paint you use. Obviously, this is Rust-Oleum. It won't really matter if it happens to me, but I would just rather it not need to be retouched up, because no matter what kind of touch-up you use, whether it be the same, there's going to be a little crack. Even if you sand it, it'll just you'll know it's there, and I don't want that. So yeah, you want to just get it really close towards the edge so we don't touch this edge. So it is, you see how the edge is right there? I have this much of an edge right here. I do not want to sand that because there's not that much paint there. So I'm going to sand this, and then I'm going to come back and buff it. You also can't get these corners, for instance. You see where we can't buff. Can't really buff. It's kind of a bad example. You can't really buff, for instance, around here. You can't buff that. So you're going to want to create a surface like about 1/2 inch of tape around there, or just don't sand around there, so that when you come back and you buff it, you'll be able to buff it and it won't just be sitting there. You can still buff it by hand, but it's not fun. So I'm gonna make this as fast as possible. I gotta get this car out of here. Cannot see me yet. What's up? You can't see me. You can't see me. Let's do this. Alright guys, I already know there's gonna be naysayers. I wouldn't put it on my car. I wouldn't do. Well, guess what? I ain't had no money, so I did what I had to do. This is the result that I got. However, just take a look at what some buffing and some sanding can do. See right there where I couldn't really get close. So I was trying to describe to you. I'll come back later, but just really wanted to make sure that this was going to come out how I wanted to. And as you can see, it did. And this is no clear. This is literally just, as you can see, it's coming out pretty doggone good, boy. Pretty doggone good. Some little spots that I gotta fix on the door. Definitely on the hood, but that's literally coming from looking like this. Looking like piss. 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 Ooh, who that is? Who that is? Who that is? That's me. That's me. It's me shaking that butt in that picture. Alright guys, so I actually don't have any clips of me buffing the Celica. I know it's kind of sad, but I didn't have a tripod at the time, and I actually don't have a tripod at this time either, but I found a way to do it without a tripod. So anyway, what I'm going to be doing is climbing up on this ladder and buffing the roof, because it really needs a buff. And what you'll need is some microfiber cloths, some compound. It doesn't really matter what kind you get. I like this kind because it's, you know, it gets the job done and it's not very expensive. And also some wax. I'm using some Mother's Brazilian carnauba wax. And before we actually clean off the wool pad, and what you would do is you would turn on the buffer and you would slide this screwdriver, or not screwdriver, but this wrench across, and that would get all the dirt off. But there's nothing on it, so we actually have to, I don't want to say we got to dirty it up, but we have to prime the wool pad first. We have to take some compound and make it like thick. Once the wool pad is used, it becomes like hard, and it has like, I don't know how else to describe it, but it has the surface that we need when we're looking for this buff, like buffing surface. Alright guys, the first thing we're going to want to do is tape up all of our trim. And the reason why we want to tape up our trim, if we somehow happen to get compound on our trim, like for instance the trim around my sunroof, if it were to get on there, it would be incredibly difficult to get off. So we're just going to avoid all of that altogether, and we're going to tape it up. And the reason for the tape is so that we can get as close as we can to the edge. And the buffer is a little bit more forgiving when you go towards that edge. Like it doesn't. You're not sanding any paint off, but you are removing a layer of paint that is very, very microscopic. Compound is basically like a very, very, very light sand, and it's basically technology. You know, it's a very, very microscopic sand particles that you're using to abrase the topmost layer of the paint. And when you see me going back and forth towards the edge like I am right now, like I'm kind of just moving as fast as I can but backwards, it's not like super duper fast. Like I am trying to get the edge, but I'm also trying to be very careful not to heat up the surface. You have to realize that this friction buffer it's warming up the paint. And I also want you to know that after you've been doing this for a while, your buffer, your wool pad will start getting dirty, and how you clean it is just how you see me doing it right now. You take your wrench, you turn on your buffer, and you start sliding your wrench like from the center to the outside while it's on, while it's spinning. And I'm sorry that the compound's in the way. You know, I do move it right there. And I just want you guys to see though how I'm moving the buffer. It's never standing still. The only time it was ever standing still was when I was changing the speed of it. And you see how it's tilted over to the side like that? I'm using the lip to get that edge right there. That's the trick to never burning your edges. If you just make sure that you're always moving, and you know, as long as you're not moving too fast and you're doing this, you're gonna be fine. And just realize that, you know, your cord should always be over your shoulder, because if that cord happens to get spun into this buffer, that cord is going to be flung somewhere, and it might fling onto your paint. It's going to damage something very, very bad. So always have your cord over your shoulder so that you know where the cord's at. Always check your surface. Make sure that it's not super duper hot. If you're worried and you've never done this before, you know, check your surface, see if it's too hot. Pretty much the point of this sand or the compound is one of the reasons is to keep the surface cool. But you know, the biggest reason is because we're actually removing the layer of paint that, you know, we need so that we can buff. And I just want you to just imagine that I'm still buffing the Celica right now. I know I didn't have a tripod. I don't have a tripod here, but I do have this little roof rack that lets me set my phone on it, and it's letting me buff everything. So yeah, just remember, when you get to the edges, do what I'm doing right now. Just kind of move with the edge and go back and forth. You know, slow down your speed if you have to. Just be very aware that the buffing is like the trickiest part. It looks like it's easy, but I'm telling you right now, it was the most intimidating thing for me to learn while I was detailing at a body shop. And that's what I did. That was my trade. That's actually why I got into what I'm doing now, is because I was working at a body shop and I wasn't content with, you know, doing work for other people's cars, and, you know, like just getting these beautiful paint jobs and going home and then seeing my paint jobs. So, you know, I really hope that this helps somebody. And I just want you to realize that your car can look like this if you